Good evening, folks. This is Ron Tyler with the Emergency Management Associates.
This is Ron Tyler with the Emergency Management Associates coming to you live from the crossroads of the West in Lake City, Utah. The time right now is 7:05 p.m.
Barely clear on the backside of the sun, and then the earth is rotated, the sun is hitting, the earth is rotated around 3.5 miles southeast of the earth is now in the solar wind is also
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be on this planet of ours. Welcome to Emergency Management Associates. We're coming to you from the Area Command 392 miles west of Kitty Hawk Beach, North Carolina. We hope you stay tuned to this broadcast. We have some very interesting information to give you tonight. We're going to start off this broadcast by the playing of the United States National Anthem. Would everyone please rise? That's what we would say if we were an honor guard or a color guard, and we would be raising the American flag back up to normal height. It's called 2. Anyway, we want to thank everybody for being here tonight. The first thing I'm going to talk about is an update of what I talked about last night. I want everybody to understand why. I have a lot to say here about this tonight. I would hope that you would stay tuned for this. Yes, we're going to be talking about more Chinese balloons. We're going to be talking about the earthquakes around the Pacific Northwest and the volcanoes. So folks, stick around, we have a lot to talk about. Today, Russian press agency said that Russian President Vladimir Putin would be making an important address to the Russian people. And it was carried live all over the world. As we have expected in the past, many times when President Putin speaks, it's a long drawn out history about things that have happened in previous wars and previous situations in Russia. Vladimir Putin's speech today was not very long. It was very short, comparatively. It was also, in my opinion, not very important. And I'm going to explain that. Vladimir Putin's remarkably short televised address came after Yevgeny Prigozhin. Okay? I'm going to put these pictures up so you can know who I'm talking about and why. Prigozhin is over on the right. Prigozhin was the head, or still is the head, of the Wagner Group. The Wagner Group. It is a well-financed group, not just by Russia, but other people and places, countries give money to the, or have given money to the Wagner Group. This picture is the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. Okay? After Mr. Prigozhin's speech, his first statement since the rebellion was stopped on Saturday, Putin put together this speech today. It's his first statement since Prigozhin spoke on Saturday. But actually, Prigozhin spoke before Putin did. Okay? Prigozhin apparently has aborted his rebellion to take up a new life in neighboring Belarus. It is widely known that Prigozhin was at the southern town of Rostov at the Russian military headquarters that was seized right before the agreement was reached by the Belarusian president, Lukashenko. Let me show you a picture of Lukashenko. This is a great, big, huge deal, if you haven't already figured it out. It's a huge deal. This is a picture of Lukashenko from Belarus, the president of Belarus. What you need to understand about Lukashenko, he is second in command from Putin. He may be president of Belarus, but he's the right-hand man to Vladimir Putin. And that, more than anything, is why Lukashenko was used by Putin to come to an agreement with Prigozhin. Okay? Now, some of you might not understand where I'm coming from with this. Stay tuned, guys. There's a lot more here than even meets the eye. Okay. As I said, Prigozhin and Belarus President Lukashenko met, probably via telephone or video chat of some kind, because Prigozhin was in Russia and Lukashenko was in Belarus. Lukashenko was at the Russian military headquarters that they had seized at Rostov right before the agreement was reached. Now, there are rumors out that the Wagner Group may have confiscated some nuclear warheads / missiles while they were there. There is a school of thought that this may have been why the agreement was reached, because not a shot was fired by the Russian military when the Wagner Group seized the military headquarters at Rostov, and not even a drop of blood was shed in the city of Rostov. Now I want to explain something else about all of this. There's a word in Russian called Russian deception. The word in Russian is called maskilovka. Maskilovka. This is a well-known tactic for military uses. Now the question is this: how many missiles or warheads does the Wagner Group have? And what are they going to do with it? Is Wagner now a nuclear power? Before any of this ever came about, Russia transferred nuclear warhead weapons to Belarus. Prigozhin, they say, is going to move to Belarus. His people are still out with and possibly still in possession of the tactical nukes. Prigozhin was an alternate supporter of the use of tactical nuclear weapons with Putin. See what I'm talking about? See where all this comes together? If I were a leader in Europe right now, I would be very worried. I would be very, very worried. Why? If these people, okay, I'm sorry, I don't know how that happened, but if these people still have tactical nukes, and Lukashenko is also knowledgeable about what has transpired, there is a very good possibility that all parties may be together on whatever is going on. But what you also need to know is Putin, whenever anybody has gotten out of line, those people have ultimately disappeared. Those people have ultimately disappeared. If those weapons were to be sold, some people say that the Wagner Group are criminals that were released from prisons and joined the Wagner Group. So as you can see with that information, this information that I've told you now is a huge story. It's really big. Now, Prigozhin denied mounting a coup, and that is it, and that it was all about expiring contracts. The stand down of the mercenary troops was all about standing down because of military contracts with his mercenary group, Wagner Group. Now, there is someone that you need to meet. That is a member of the press, and it's a press secretary for Vladimir Putin. His name is Dmitry Peskov. Dmitry Peskov. Peskov said early before Putin's speech that Putin's statement would determine Russia's future. Later, Peskov denied having said that. Vladimir Putin did address the Russian people. And Putin allegedly said everything that he had to say when it came to Russia, himself, and Prigozhin. Vladimir Putin did address the Russian people. His speech was no more than 5 minutes long. No more than 5 minutes long. It was publicized as being something big. As I said, starting out here tonight, we've been accustomed to Putin rambling, often history-warped speeches throughout the course of his march into power. But his statement was extremely short, running less than 5 minutes. The big news is this: there was no big news. Russian President Vladimir Putin has thanked the nation for unity after an armed rebellion over the weekend was aborted less than 24 hours after it began, and less than 120 miles of coming into headquarters in Russia, meaning Moscow. Putin did thank the Wagner Group. Putin did thank this group of mercenaries. If that could be called thanking them. Now, I want to bring this down here so you can see these other pictures as I'm showing them to you. Putin did thank the soldiers and asked them to join the Russian military. Putin said that the weekend's drama was a result of external threats and blamed it on neo-Nazis, as he has consistently sought to paint the UKR. He says that the organization of the rebellion betrayed the Wagner Group fighters who were dragged into the organization. Okay? So, in that statement, it's all jumbled up. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Putin went on to say that they wanted Russian soldiers to kill each other. They wanted our society to be fragmented, to be splintered, and they tried to take revenge for the failure at the front, but they slipped up, unquote. He thanked the Wagner Group for their restraint shown on the weekend. Without naming the Wagner Group boss, Yevgeny Prigozhin, he attacked the mutineers as traitors. He attacked the Wagner Group mercenaries as traitors. What's most important to take out of this is the Wagner Group boss, Yevgeny Prigozhin, is clearly a marked man. Putin, in a warning, said that the leaders of the rebellion would be brought to justice. Putin was warning Prigozhin that he's furious with what happened, and he won't be forgiving or forgetting. What I told you last night is true, that Prigozhin and Putin were best buds. Prigozhin owned a bunch of restaurants in Moscow, literally all over Moscow. And Prigozhin actually served food to Vladimir Putin. But it's not over. Putin doubled down on his original threat to the organization's boss, Prigozhin, saying that the organizers of this rebellion cannot but understand that they will be brought to justice. Okay? He's saying this on one hand. But you're about to hear what he said on the other. Putin said everybody understands that the leadership of the Wagner Group will be brought to justice. He said this is criminal activity which is aimed at weakening the country. We all have come to know all too well how Putin's cold fury and his ceaseless quest for revenge can play out. We've kind of seen that when people just disappear. Vladimir Putin attempted to calm the Russian society and said that the country was united and prepared to defend their homeland on Saturday when the Wagner Group boss Prigozhin launched his march to Moscow. Again, the march was halted 120 miles south of Moscow. In truth, Prigozhin was able to move his convoy, like I said, within 120 miles, 200 kilometers of Moscow in a single day. One day. Having taken over a key military headquarters at Rostov, it's actually called Rostov-on-Don in the south, Prigozhin actually exposed how much support he had compared to the Russian leader. Prigozhin exposed the support that he had compared to Putin. Now, as I said, Putin spoke out of one side of his mouth. What I'm about to tell you is the other side. Vladimir Putin offered the Wagner Group fighters 3 choices. He urged them to either contact the Defense Ministry to sign up for the Russian military, go back to their homes, or go to Belarus. Join the Russian military, go back to their homes, or go to Belarus. What do they have in their possession? Or, excuse me, what do they possibly have in their possession? Putin also thanked most of the mercenaries for not letting the situation deteriorate into bloodshed. Putin said that he would honor his promise to allow Wagner fighters to relocate to Belarus if they wanted to, or to sign a contract with the Defense Ministry, or to simply return home to their families. Okay? So what did he say over here? That he would seek revenge against them and the group's leaders. On the second hand, he's given them a choice to join the Russians, to go home, or go to Belarus. Belarus is a neighboring puppet state where it is determined the Wagner boss Prigozhin would live from now on, having called off his quote-unquote failed coup. Putin said, quote, "I repeat, it is the choice of each of you, but it will be the choice of warriors of Russia who have acknowledged their faults." He blamed Russia's enemies and said they miscalculated. Now, it's even further than that. The Kremlin also tried to project stability on and during Putin's speech today, when authorities released a video of Russia's defense ministry reviewing troops in UKR. Earlier, the head of the Wagner mercenary group, Mr. Prigozhin, said he was not trying to overthrow the Russian government by marching on Moscow. In comments, likely the terms struck to stop the warlord's attempted coup. In an 11-minute voice recording released on social media before President Putin's speech, Prigozhin's first speech since the armed uprising against Russia's military leadership on Saturday. Prigozhin said that he wanted to demonstrate his objection to a decision to disband Wagner and also to demonstrate Russia's poor domestic defenses. Prigozhin said the march towards Moscow by Wagner troops within 200 kilometers of the capital on Saturday was a protest aimed at bringing to account those responsible for enormous mistakes, quote unquote. In Russia's war on UKR, enormous mistakes, as well as to prevent the destruction of his Wagner mercenary group. He wanted to prevent the destruction of his group. Prigozhin had not been seen or heard from since he drove away from the Southern Army headquarters. His Wagner group having briefly seized on Saturday. Prigozhin is still facing charges for his armed insurrection, despite the Kremlin's promising that the charges would be dropped, according to the state media. He said, "We didn't have the goal of toppling the existing regime, which was lawfully elected. As we have said many times, who did not refer to Putin by name?" Prigozhin did not. Prigozhin went on to say, "Our decision to turn around came after two important factors. The first, we did not want to spill Russian blood. The second, we were marching to demonstrate our protest, not to unseat the government." In a deal struck by the Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, Prigozhin was offered free passage to Belarus and immunity from charges of inciting a rebellion. But Russia's main state news service, called RIA Novosti, today cited a source in the Prosecutor General's office saying the charges had not been dropped. Kommersant, which is a Russian business newspaper, also reported that the main Russian security service, called FSB, was still investigating Prigozhin and said not enough time has passed to take another decision. Prigozhin said on Telegram that Lukashenko offered to find ways for Wagner to keep working legally. Again, Lukashenko offered the mercenary group safe haven to keep working legally. Prigozhin said that the trigger for his rebellion was a strike by the Russian army on Wagner's camp in eastern UKR that killed about 30 of these fighters. He insisted, however, that his actions was not a coup attempt. Now, another part of the story is this. Putin caved. His former chef, Prigozhin, supposedly has gone into exile in Belarus. Prigozhin was formerly, like I said, a close ally of Putin, and said that the ability of the Wagner troops to progress unimpeded showed serious security problems in Russia. The Kremlin has caved to the Wagner Group boss, Prigozhin, and said criminal charges against him for his attempted military coup will be dropped. But the FSN security group within the Kremlin said that's not the case. It's too early to make that statement. During a Russian press conference, Vladimir Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov announced the news Saturday in comments to TASS, the news agency there in Russia, claiming Prigozhin will be leaving the country soon and going to Belarus. He said he had no idea what Prigozhin will do in Belarus. The relocation was apparently a part of the deal that Prigozhin brokered with Belarus President Lukashenko in order to halt Wagner's advance on Moscow. Putin gave his word that Prigozhin will be allowed to leave for Belarus, according to Secretary Peskov. Now, even more information has leaked. This is what the Daily Beast had to say about it today. The Kremlin also said all Wagnerites, members of the Wagner Group, who took part in the uprising will be spared from criminal charges. Field camps are under construction in Belarus today for Wagner mercenaries fighting under Prigozhin, who was just exiled to Belarus following his attempted mutiny in Russia. That's according to independent Russian sources. Verska, V-E-R-T-S-K-A. Quote, we are already working today. Tomorrow before lunch, the task is to build that camp. One relative of Wagner fighter told the Russian outlet that they were told that they would be sent to Belarus. The camps under design are reportedly preparing for 8,000 beds, which will stretch 24,000 square meters, 258,334 square feet, and will be about 120 miles from the Belarus border with UKR. In a recorded address to the nation late today, Vladimir Putin confirmed that the Wagner Group fighters who did not shed blood could sign a contract with the Russian military or go to Belarus. Who do you think is telling the truth? Lukashenko, Vladimir Putin, or Prigozhin? It's up in the air. Like I said in the beginning, Vladimir Putin has always done what he said he was going to do. And in the beginning, he said the people that fought against him would have to meet their maker. Whenever he's made a statement, he's carried it out. And anybody can translate that however they want. Basically saying, bye-bye. And yet they're supposedly building a camp for them in Belarus. Okay. Now enough with that. There are other things that I want to talk about here. And then we're going to talk about earthquakes and volcanoes. There have been 2 more Chinese spy balloons that have been seen over the United States. Residents of Montana have said that they've seen a Chinese spy balloon. There is also data to suggest there's actually 2 spy balloons. 2 spy balloons. As you can see in the upper left-hand corner of this map, Montana. The bottom right suggests there's a spy balloon over Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Biden's DOJ doesn't seem to care about this. They haven't said yes or no, just like they have done with the other balloons. In other words, they don't want to even acknowledge that they exist. And if that's the case, why hasn't Mr. B, JB, the same guy that can't even walk hardly, why has he not told the United States Air Force to take it down? Let me offer possibly a solution. Remember when Mr. B took 2 of the other spy balloons down? He used Stinger missiles, 1 for each balloon. And they were very accurate and did their job. 1 Stinger missile cost, just 1 Stinger missile in 1991 cost $25,000. 1 missile. The U.S. Army was awarded $624,600,000. Over $624 million in a contract to Raytheon Technology for more missiles to replenish the U.S. inventory. Folks, in May 2022, Raytheon Technologies got that contract to replenish the U.S. inventory. Therefore, for each Stinger missile, each missile costs $480,461.53. That's how much it costs U.S. taxpayers to shoot down 1 single Chinese balloon. And yet we have 2 more. 2 more up over our soil. And every day that they're allowed to remain there, the Chinese government gets information about our country, its residents, and our military bases, and what we have on the bases in real time. Is that really what we want to have happen? have these balloons up over our soil, gathering information against us. You should know, if you don't already, that China and Russia are in cahoots. President Xi from China has entered into agreements with President Putin to help Russia. So they're gathering very important information about us, and they are allowed to do so unprotected. So, as Linda Covington's in the chat, I just noticed her statement, an industrial war machine at its finest. That's exactly right. An Arkansas bluesman has also said this in the chat. What about the thousands of them that are incoming as we speak? Well, I don't know we have thousands of them, number one. I am sure, given the situation that we previously had, there were 4 balloons. 2 of them destroyed. What happened with the others? We have something to think about. We need to get on our little phones. We need to get on these devices right here and make some telephone calls to the Biden administration. We need to get on these little devices here and also make a call to our state congressmen and our U.S. senators and tell them that we are not pleased with what is going on, and tell them to take action, or they will be without a job sometime in the next 2 years. And no, we don't have to let them remain for 2 years. We can initiate a recall and remove them from office and put someone else there that will do the job. Do the job that we want done to protect our country. That's what everyone needs to do. Anyone that's listening or will listen to this program needs to call the Washington operator. It's a 202 number. To call the Washington operator and tell them that you want to speak to the President of the United States, or at least one of his top aides. The same thing goes for U.S. senators and U.S. congressmen. And tell them that you are not pleased. Okay? That's what we need to do. Also, you folks that are here, please give us thumbs up if you like what we've said so far and what we will say. Give us a thumbs up before you leave. Also, if you're not subscribed to this channel, please do so. And when you do subscribe to this channel, there's something else that you need to do. After you've subscribed, there's a little bell icon. Click on that little bell icon and also click on the word ALL, all, to make sure you get notified when we come on the air. Emergency Management Associates comes on the air between 6 and 7 almost every night, Monday through Friday. We have a Sunday school class after 12 noon on Sundays. We also come on the air at all times of the day and night to give you breaking information, breaking news that you might need to have to help protect yourself and to help you prepare you and your family for whatever may happen. That's what we do here. This channel is not just for earthquakes, for hurricanes, tornadoes, for wild winds, whether they're straight down shear winds, whether they are inline winds blowing straight at us, or fires, floods, rain, whatever kind of disaster that could possibly happen, including man-made events. Yes, we talk about those as well. So if you're interested in this channel, please subscribe. About 25% of people that watch this channel don't subscribe. That is a shame. Because if you're not subscribed, you're not going to be notified about our channel. You also need to know that YouTube unsubscribes people on a regular basis. So you also need to check your subscriptions to make sure you're still subscribed. And if not, resubscribe and click on that bell icon and click on that word all, A-L-L. Okay? So you get to know the things that we know, the things that I want to tell you about what's happening. So again, you can get information about emergency preparedness. You can get information about such things as disasters that can happen around you. And everything I've talked about tonight, even though it occurred in Russia, it could end up affecting each and every one of us around the world. Literally around the world. Just to give you an idea of things that have happened in the way of earthquakes through the weekend. Mostly we had a bunch of 5s here and there dotting the globe, and a few 6s. 5.0 earthquakes are large earthquakes. 5.0 to 5.9 are large earthquakes. 5.5 to 5.9 are considered to be very strong earthquakes, very large earthquakes. 6.0 to 6.9 are considered to be very strong, very destructive earthquakes. Large earthquakes can be very destructive as well, and they can kill people. 6.0, 6.9 have also been known to destroy communities, to kill people. 7.0 and beyond, all the way up to 10.0 or beyond that, are considered to be very dangerous earthquakes. Not just strong, but very dangerous earthquakes. 7.0 to 8, 9, and 10.0 are major earthquakes. They're considered to be major destructive earthquakes. And folks, that's bad. That's really bad. So far, we have not seen any major earthquakes throughout this past weekend. We fully expected it to happen because Thursday we had a CME that launched from the sun, and it had a sideways glance at the Earth when it arrived at Earth. But that sideways glance, everybody, still interrupted TV and radio signals worldwide. TV and radio signals worldwide, not just ham radio. Literally, not just ham radio. Okay? I'm going to show you something. This is what happens when one of the CMEs hits Earth. See that? That is a TV channel that is supposed to be showing what is programmed by each of the channels. As you can see, you can't read anything because of the distortion that happens as a result of the CMEs. That actually happened and is still happening even today. Even today, it hit Earth about Friday or Saturday. It's still hitting Earth today. Okay? And even regular TV programming can be interrupted. Radios that the police, fire, and medical operate on are also interrupted, as well as military radios are interrupted. Air-to-ground communication between planes is also interrupted. Air-to-ground communication between airplanes and satellites and even the United States Space Station have been interrupted. Fortunately, the astronauts in the space station have a place in the space station where they're protected from the cosmic and solar radiation. Yet the radio signals still are interrupted. It's happening, guys. It's happening. Even though this was a sideways glance off the Earth, it could have been much worse. That CME was an X1 CME, an X1 solar flare. An X10 is the most severe. A C-class flare is not that severe, but it still has implications here on Earth and other planets. We have C, we have M class, we have R class, and we have X class. That was an X1 class. Okay? They go X1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. X10 is the worst. So far in written history, we have never had an X-class flare. I would think that if we had an X-class flare, it would probably give us a Carrington-style event and destroy all of our electrical systems here on Earth and take us back into the 1800s for a very, very, very long time. Anyway, that's what's happened this weekend. Fortunately, we have had no major earthquakes. I fully expected that to happen, at least one or two, someplace. We've had large earthquakes down in the South Pacific, around Tonga and the Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, and even north of the country of New Zealand, down into the Kermadec Islands. We've had a large earthquake over in South America. We've had large earthquakes over in Indonesia. We've had large earthquakes over by Japan. Like I said, so far we have gotten very lucky. It could be so much worse. And that's what we're seeing today. It's been a very nominal day here on this Earth when it comes to earthquakes. Nothing major at all. I'm now going to take you up to the Pacific Northwest, to Washington State, specifically to a volcano that's called Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier is a major volcano. A major volcano that typically would have been seen anywhere around the world. But this is a stratovolcano over in Washington State. This is just east of Seattle. Everyone in and around Seattle or anywhere on any side of this volcano can see it. Mr. B. Cole is in our chat tonight. He fishes all over that area. He sent me pictures of him fishing. He sent me pictures of Mount Rainier steaming. As you can see by this seismogram, Mount Rainier is very active. What you're seeing here are vertical lines. Vertical lines with a dot in the middle of them are actual earthquakes. Smaller, tinier ones are called tremors. But larger ones over, say, an inch or more longer, those are earthquakes. And depending on how strong they are, you're going to see longer lines and thicker lines. For example, this dark blue thick line over here on the left-hand side. This happened just after 7:31 this morning. It looks to be just maybe 3/4 of an inch long, maybe an inch long. But what you need to know is this seismogram, this whole image that I'm showing you is called a seismogram. What you need to know is the agency, the USGS, and the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network downgraded the seismogram. How did they do it? They turned the seismograph way down. Way down. This seismogram is only showing us 26% of real world. 26% of real world. So if we're looking at this one earthquake, okay, normally this earthquake would be classed as maybe a 2.0, minor earthquake, judging by the length of that line, the vertical line. But look at its thickness. This seismic event this morning lasted maybe 5 or 10 seconds. Now, while that's not long, for an earthquake, that's a long time. If we multiplied the size of this earthquake by 4 to cause it to show 100% accuracy, this earthquake would probably be either a small 3.5 to a moderate 4.0, 4.5. These minor earthquakes cannot even be felt. A 4.5, on the other hand, can rattle dishes in a cupboard. It can knock over paintings or pictures on the wall. It can knock off knickknacks and books off of bookshelves. So now you see what I see. You see, these earthquakes are not small earthquakes. They might look like it, but they're not. They're not. I'm going to continue to drag this seismogram up so you can have the chance to see exactly what I've seen today. I monitor on average of about 150 earthquakes every day. Or not earthquakes, seismograms. I monitor about 150 seismograms every day without fail. There's a lot of activity on this one. Look at the bottom of this seismogram on the left-hand side. Okay? This, folks, was deceiving. Look how wide that earthquake was. Now, judging by the dark blue line there, where it happened, that is half of the earthquake. So we can't see the bottom of it, can we? Normally, a line that would be that long, twice what it is going up from the middle line, the middle part of that earthquake, this would probably be close to a 3.0 earthquake. But given the knowledge that we have, that we're only seeing part of this seismic event, multiply it times 4. Also look at the width of this event. This event lasted about 30 seconds. This is a significant seismic event at Mount Rainier. A significant seismic event at Mount Rainier. We can't let this go unnoticed. Probably pushing a 4.5 earthquake in the least. A 4.5 earthquake at Mount Rainier is very important. It's very important because the damage that this earthquake could do. The damage that this earthquake could do. Now, this earthquake occurred at the volcano. Not south, not north, not east, not west. It happened at the volcano. Okay? Now, in past episodes of this program, I have spoken about 4.5 and larger earthquakes. What is important about this? Number one, we are expecting a very major earthquake to hit off the coast of Seattle. It's called a Cascadia megathrust earthquake. That Cascadia megathrust earthquake is going to be at least a 9 to 10.0 major earthquake, causing major damage in and around the entire Pacific Northwest, north of Seattle and also south of Seattle, all the way down to the Mexican border. What does this have to do with the 4.5 earthquake in the Cascade Mountain region? Mount Rainier is in the Cascade Mountain region. A 4.5 earthquake in this region, coupled with another 4.5 in the same region, which stretches from southern British Columbia all the way down to northern California. That is the length of the Cascade Mountain region. So we've already had a 4.0, 4.5 earthquake at Mount Rainier today. If we get two of those, two 4.5 earthquakes or larger within a short time of each other, that could be a signal to us that the Cascadia megathrust earthquake could be a couple weeks away, very soon. Now, about a week or so ago, I passed a message on to you from Terry Rimple. I have not spoken to him in over 2 years. The reason I say this, is because I had him on this program about 2 years ago. And he did not tell me what he wanted to tell all of you. That he was starting his own channel. And I was blown away that he had not even spoken to me about it. But after that announcement on my channel, he unfriended me. He blocked my calls to his telephone number. He blocked all communication from me. That's not what a friend does. But he left me a message to give to all of you on my comments underneath one of my videos about a week and a half ago. He stated that there were 2 5.0 and larger earthquakes over here at Lake Almanor in Northern California, east of Mount Shasta and Mount Lassen. Folks, we had a 5.1 and a 5.3 here just a few months ago. This was a major event in Northern California. But no one has, well, excuse me, not no one, very few people have the data that Terry and I possess. The study that Terry has made and the information that I have acquired through my own study, together with what Terry showed me and gave me, which gave me and Terry the ability to know when a Cascadia megathrust earthquake was going to occur. In his message to me a few weeks ago, he stated that the 5.1 and the 5.3 at Lake Almanor could be considered part of the Cascadia region, meaning that these earthquakes could trigger or possibly trigger the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. But folks, these earthquakes that hit here, Lake Almanor in Northern California, hit here a long time ago. This year, but a couple months ago. Neither one of those earthquakes has triggered the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. However, just so you know, it's not over. It's not over. We are fully expecting a Cascadia megathrust earthquake still off the coast. That is why that I've shown you this particular seismogram on our program tonight. Because yes, folks, we have had plenty of earthquakes and tremors at Mount Rainier today. And I want to keep this enlarged for a minute. You can see vertical lines here that don't have a dot in the middle of them. Small, tiny vertical lines. Those tiny vertical lines without a dot in the middle of them are steam related. They're steam signals. Those are seismic signals called steam signals. If those vertical lines were larger, you would see curlicues coming off of those vertical lines. Now, I am going to show you some vertical lines tonight at a volcano that happened today that show steam signals. Okay? One more seismogram here. This is also from Mount Rainier. Okay? Now, this one came from the south side of Mount Rainier. This is Camp Sherman. The other one was Camp Muir. Camp Muir is on the north flank of the volcano, the north side of the volcano. Camp Muir is on the south flank of Mount Rainier. I want to show you this because this is very valid right now. This seismogram started at 10 p.m. last night, and before it actually got going, really going, after about 10, I'm going to say 10:56 p.m. last night, in this light blue signal here. Folks, this, is called a magma churn signal. This is not an earthquake, this is a magma churn signal. The magma churn signal happens when there is scalding hot, very scalding hot magma, 2,000, 3,000 degrees hot. Okay? A special magma churn signal is resulted here on this seismogram. That represents that very hot magma. Magma churn signals are typically 23 to 24 lines high. This is not. This is just barely 27 lines high. Now you can just barely see lines going out to the right side of this magma churn signal. What are those? Those are actually steam signals. Those are steam signals coming from Mount Rainier. Steam being vetted at Mount Rainier. These you can see a lot of vertical lines here. There are a lot of tremors here. There are also vertical lines with no dot in the middle of them. Those are also steam signatures. Okay? Look at that. Look at all of these earthquakes that have hit. Earthquakes and tremors. And down here at the bottom of it, we have another magma churn signal. In this case, you can kind of see those lines going out to the right. Again, steam signals. Steam signals. So you can see from two locations now from Mount Rainier that this volcano is very active. There are approximately 11 to 12 seismographs all around each of these volcanoes. But folks, what you need to know is that not just USGS, but also the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network that's funded by the University of Washington, funded by the U.S. taxpayer and Washington state taxpayers, the seismographs have been turned off. Or the agency puts up false seismograms showing absolutely gobbledygook. Or they just show a picture like this. No photo available. And I'm going to show you one of those tonight too. Okay? Crazy. These agencies reduce the size of these seismograms so that we are not aware of everything that's going on. They also don't give us all the information. Sometimes they only give us 1 or 2 seismograms, hoping that we'll be satisfied with that. Guess what? when the other seismograms show gobbledygook, garbage, or nothing at all, that's not what we taxpayers want to see. We want to see all the information because our lives depend on us having that information. Okay? And when they don't, that's when Mr. Ron here and everybody else should be calling these people and saying, why are you putting up false information? Why are you not showing seismograms at these various places? Okay? You can go to the Lassen Volcanic Observatory and pull up seismograms all over the Pacific Northwest and all the way down to the Mexican border. And you can tell when the seismograms are showing gobbledygook. After you see one of these seismograms like I've just shown you here, then you realize what a real seismogram looks like and when they're showing us gobbledygook or they have put up no photo available. Because that's what they do. That's what they do. Mount St. Helens, guys, look at this. Mount St. Helens is just south of Mount Rainier. Mount St. Helens erupted in 1980. Boy, how I wanted to say 1940, but no, it didn't erupt back then. It erupted in 1980. It killed a lot of people. It destroyed homes. It destroyed land. Yes, there was some lava outflow from the volcano. The melting glaciers on Mount St. Helens also created what they call a lahar, rushing ice and water down the side of the volcano, down creeks and rivers, pulling debris, trees, limbs, rocks, all kinds of debris with it. It's called a lahar. These lahars destroyed bridges, destroyed roadways, destroyed a lot of property, and like I said, killed people. Mount St. Helens erupted again in the early 2000s. That didn't destroy anything and it didn't kill anybody. It was just a small, short eruption. The 1980 eruption did. Now we are still monitoring Mount St. Helens today. It is showing signs of livelihood, and that's a good word. It's showing signs of life, meaning it could erupt again. Folks, this seismogram that I'm showing is called East Dome Mount St. Helens. This is the rock, the big, huge lava rock, a great, big, huge lava rock that sits at the summit of the volcano. A great, big, huge lava rock sitting at the summit of the volcano. And there's lava down there in the magma channel. They should call it lava because that magma beneath that lava rock that is at the summit of Mount St. Helens is magma under the ground. Material under the ground, that hot, miserably hot, dangerous magma that's down there, because it's underground, it's called magma. Once it erupts from the volcano, it's called lava. It's called lava. That magma is pounding on that lava rock. that summit plug of the volcano. It's pounding on it. What happens when that pressure hits that lava rock, that plug of that rock? It fractures, doesn't it? It creates tiny holes in that lava plug, doesn't it? And those tiny holes allow steam to escape the volcano, sometimes creating a halo over the summit of the volcano. Sometimes you can see the vapor plume coming from the top of the volcano. You can see that. Or you can see a lot of clouds over the top of the volcano, caused by water that's in the magma. 6 to 7% of all magma is water, and when it's heated up to those extreme heat temperatures, that water turns to steam, and because those fissures those fractures of that summit plug allow that steam, that water to escape. And as that hot water goes through those fractures, what happens? Those fractures get wider and wider and wider. It's a simple physics lesson. Steam makes everything larger. That's why we have hot air balloons. It expands the envelope of the balloon so it can rise. Hot air rises, right? So does steam from the volcano. And it enlarges those holes in the volcanic plug. And at some point in time, that volcanic plug will blow. Boom. There will be an explosive eruption at any one of these volcanoes, and all of them are steaming. Every volcano that we're going to talk about tonight is steaming. There are a lot more volcanoes all over the landscape than even what we're talking about. Okay? This one here, I told you about Rainier. This one is just south of Rainier. It's Mount St. Helens. Look at this signature here. Up at the top, each line represents a 15-minute time period. A 15-minute time period. What we are showing you here, each line has magma. Represents magma infill going into the volcano. The lines may start out thin and get thicker. They may start out thicker and get thinner. Those are called magma pulse signals. Magma pulse signals. P-U-L-S-E. Magma pulse signals. So you see these thicker lines here. Each line represents 15 minutes of time. The thicker lines represent magma coming into the magma chamber of this volcano. The vertical lines are tremors and earthquakes, like I said. Some of these thicker lines look like bulges, don't they? Those thicker bulges here are a huge amount of magma coming into the magma chamber. And you see tiny lines going through these bulges. You see tiny lines going through these horizontal lines. Those tiny lines are tremors caused by magma under pressure coming into the volcanic chamber, fracturing rock inside the volcano. That's how that happens. That's how we get tremors and earthquakes at the volcanoes. Magma entering the volcano under pressure. magma entering the volcano under pressure causes rock to fracture, causing those earthquakes. Now, again, you see a magma churn signal here. Superheated magma, right? Absolutely. Anytime you see one of those rectangles, that's what it is. Typically, there are usually 2 magma churn signals to every seismogram, but not necessarily all the time. But as you can see, this magma churn signal is again 7 lines high, meaning this seismogram is only 26% of real world. You see vertical lines going out to the right. Those are steam signals. Steam signals. Now, right below that magma churn signal, you see one of those the steam signals. A vertical line with a curlicue on it. That is a steam signal. Down here on the left-hand side, we see another one, don't we? Those are steam signals, guys. Steam signals generated by the magma. Okay? Caused by the magma. Heating the magma up to a certain temperature, and that releases the water in the magma, which causes steam, doesn't it? Okay? Just giving you a little physics lesson. But you also see these earthquakes. These earthquakes. These vertical lines may only be 3/4 of an inch high. These vertical lines are actually a lot longer than they appear to be. Because some person at the agency turned down the seismograph. Turned it down so the images would not appear as they should be. These images are 4 times as long as they are. Probably 3.5 earthquakes at least. 3.0, 3.9 are considered to be small earthquakes. 4.0 to 4.9 are considered to be moderate. I've already talked to you about 5.0, 5.9, and so on and so forth. That gives you an idea. Minor earthquakes are 2.0 to 2.9. Tremors are 1.0 to 1.9. Microquakes are 0.1 to 0.9. Microquakes. Tiny earthquakes, basically. Tiny earthquakes. But here you see what we have to offer you here at Mount St. Helens. So you've seen what magma looks like when it's entering the volcano. Again, this seismograph here, the seismograph was turned way down. It should be showing us a lot more information than it is, including those earthquakes. These lines, if the seismograph was turned up, would be a lot thicker. If they were a lot thicker, you might not even see any white beneath those lines. The lines would be thick. That is how much magma is coming into this magma chamber here at Mount St. Helens. Now this is just East Dome Mount St. Helens. There's another one. Like I said, these volcanoes sometimes have 10, 11, 12 seismographs all around the mountain. In this case, there are 2 seismographs up at the summit of the volcano. One such seismograph is called September Lobe. It's a spider type seismograph. It sits on spindly legs at the top of Mount St. Helens, just like this, on top of the plug of the volcano. these seismographs are very heavy. When there's enough rumbling underneath the volcano, all that magma causing tremors and earthquakes, what do you think happens to that spindly legged seismograph? It falls over. It falls over. Now, for the past month, we've had nothing. No records coming from Mount St. Helens except from the United States Geological Survey. They allege that the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network gives them information, and they post it on their website. How is that possible when the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network for the last month had nothing to show but a little photograph that said no photo available? And like I said, I'm going to show you something similar to that tonight. Okay? But this is September lobe coming from the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. It's a separate agency from the Pacific North, or from the USGS. Okay? This agency is operated by the state of Washington. What are you seeing here? This particular seismograph that this comes from is a 7-channel seismograph. It's a multi-channel seismograph, allowing different signals for different reasons. Okay? This particular channel is showing magma coming into Mount St. Helens volcano. Each one of these wavy lines here, each one of these wavy lines is called VLF, very low frequency waves caused by the magma incoming into the volcano. The more wavy lines, the more active wavy lines, is indicative of a lot of magma. A lot of magma coming into the magma chamber. Now, the last seismograph that I pointed out on the seismogram from Mount St. Helens didn't tell us a lot, did it? It showed us some magma coming in, but that's all. This seismogram, folks, tells us a lot of magma has come into Mount St. Helens volcano. The top of this seismogram started out at 5 p.m. yesterday. Actually, in this particular case, it was 4 p.m. yesterday. So you see all these VLF wave lines here, these wavy lines? That's indicative of the amount of magma that's coming into Mount St. Helens. Okay, look at that. And it really didn't stop at all. 4 o'clock here at the top. About 2 inches down, it's midnight. Midnight last night, 12 o'clock this morning. At that point in time, it says 000 hours on the left-hand side. That's midnight. At that point in time, you're still seeing a great deal of magma coming into Mount St. Helens here. And it continued for hours. That magma continued for hours like that. Now, magma doesn't stop coming into the volcano. The amount of magma does. The amount of magma does. It gets lighter and lighter. And as we go to about 4 o'clock this morning, no, 5 o'clock this morning, after 5 o'clock it calmed down. And it calmed down for at least 2 or 3 hours. Then about 8 a.m. this morning, more and more lava started pouring into this volcano. And you can see the wavy lines starting up again. Now, you can also see where I pulled the seismogram. I pulled it just after 3 p.m. Just after 3 p.m. That's 15 over on the left-hand side. I pulled it just after 3 p.m. So you don't see anything more. I will tell you, when we pull the seismogram from tomorrow, it will show a lot of magma still coming in the magma chamber today. This, folks, is Mount St. Helens. Mount St. Helens is one of 18 volcanoes that is slated to erupt again. And as you can see, this is very important because magma is going to erupt again. Regardless of what these people will do, regardless of whether they will shut off or turn down the seismogram. As you can see from this seismogram here, look at last night. Look at all that magma coming into the volcano. They showed it this morning, didn't they? They did not show everything from 10 p.m. on. 10 p.m. would be 2200 hours at the top. So between 10 p.m. last night and 1:15 this morning, they turned it way down. Because all of a sudden, after 1 a.m. this morning, they turned it up so we could see all this magma coming into the magma chamber. Okay? They turned it up. Now, let me show you another seismogram from the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. This is also September lobe. Like I said, this is a multi-channel seismograph. Okay? Now again, they are not showing all the magma coming into the magma chamber. They've turned this seismograph way down. Yes, we're seeing earthquakes here. We're seeing a bunch of tremors here as well. But they're not showing the seismogram showing the magma, meaning the thicker horizontal lines here. This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that they turned the seismograph so far down that it's not giving us good information. It's just barely showing us earthquakes and tremors. Only because those earthquakes and tremors are larger and they're forcing the seismograph to work. They're forcing the seismograph to show you events. Earthquakes here are actually larger than they seem. Okay? And you can see a lot here. Again, this is September lobe at Mount St. Helens, coming from the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. South of Mount St. Helens, there's another volcano. It's called Mount Hood. Let's take a visit to Mount Hood. Okay? Let me show you a seismogram from Mount Hood. I first want to show you a seismogram coming from Timberline. Timberline is a seismograph that sits on the southern lower side of Mount Hood. Again, this is done by the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. That's where we get this information. Look at these lines here. Look at these horizontal lines. They're showing a lot of magma, right? They're showing some magma coming into this magma chamber. Up at the top, that looks to be a lot of magma. That's at 4 p.m. yesterday. So we're not completely seeing that line, but it's showing us the information. Look at the line just below it. They've turned the seismograph so far down, it's showing a very thin line. If they were going to allow the seismograph to operate as it should, to give us the accurate readings that it should, we should at least see on that second line, which is 10:15 p.m. last night. I'm sorry, not 10:15. It's 4:15 yesterday afternoon. That second line should be thicker, shouldn't it? Because magma just doesn't stop like that. It doesn't, especially over on the right-hand side, showing a lot more magma coming into the magma chamber, and then over on the second line on the left, a lot less. It doesn't happen that way. It does not absolutely happen that way. It can't. We're seeing activity here. Each line almost has some kind of activity. Tremors. A lot of magma coming into the magma chamber. These huge sudden bursts of magma coming into the magma chamber, causing rock fracturing within Mount St. Helens. When rock fractures inside of a volcano, it causes that volcano to rise up, a rising mountain. Okay? That can happen before a magma eruption of the volcano. Okay? You see a lot of horizontal lines here that are thicker. More and more magma coming into the magma chamber. But again, they've turned this seismograph so far down, it hardly shows anything at the bottom. Almost nothing. It's just barely allowing the seismograph to show us anything. It's showing us tiny tremors that would be minor earthquakes, probably. These longer vertical lines would be larger earthquakes. Again, they've turned it way down. They don't intend on letting us see exactly what's going on. How do we know what's going on? At Mount Hood. Let me show you this. This is another seismogram coming from the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. This one is a different location. This one is Lamberson Butte, right next to Mount Hood. Lamberson Butte is just on the same ridge as Mount Hood. The seismograph is on Lamberson Butte. This seismograph is a multi-channel seismograph. This one is showing the wavy VLF lines here. The magma coming into Mount Hood. Okay? Look at that, guys. Up at the top of this, at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, it shows a lot of magma coming into the volcano, right? Oh yeah, a lot. Then we get some disparaging news that the magma calmed down a bit. Then it kicked up a bit. It kicked up a bit just after 9 p.m. last night. Then it got calm again. Then this afternoon, look what happened at Mount Hood. More and more magma poured into this volcano, didn't it? These lines on the seismogram should be full lines, shouldn't they? they should be thicker. I wonder why that they're not showing that, or not allowing it to be shown. Interesting, huh? Because they don't intend on us knowing what exactly is going on. Now, south of Mount Hood, there's several other volcanoes that we're going to visit here. Okay? I first want to show you Sisters Volcano. There's a number of volcanoes and volcanic cones and craters all over Oregon. Mount Hood south, we have a bunch of volcanoes. A bunch. This one is called Sisters Volcano, and it's actually 3 separate volcanoes being monitored by only one seismograph. So if you're seeing all this activity, it may be coming from one or all 3 volcanoes. Okay? Let's enlarge this and take a look at what's going on at Sisters Volcano. Look at the tremors. Look at the tremors. The horizontal lines showing us magma coming into the magma chamber. Not much, but some. But again, you need to know that this seismograph has been turned way down. Way, way down. So it's not going to show us as much magma, and it's also not going to show us every earthquake. If it's going to show us any kind of data about earthquakes, it's going to be smaller earthquakes than would normally be happening under these same circumstances. Okay? Let's enlarge this so you can see it here. What happened after 12 noon today? Look at each individual line. Look at the number of earthquakes hitting on each individual line. The number of earthquakes increased because the amount of magma coming into the volcano increased. That's what we're seeing here. But again, the lines are very thin because they've turned the subject matter down. They've turned the seismograph way down. But we're still seeing activity. If they turn the seismograph back up, we could see the amount of magma coming into the magma chamber. We can see in actuality the size of the earthquakes. Okay? This is Sisters Volcano. Again, this is just an example of what they don't want us to see, which is sad. Mount Hood has tried to erupt at least twice in the last year and a half. It's had some times when it just wanted to go. Last year there was one time at Sisters Volcano here that it looked like Sisters Volcano was going to erupt. There are 3 volcanoes there at Sisters Volcanoes. There's Sisters South, there's a central crater, the central mountain there, Sisters Volcano Central, and Sisters Volcano North. 3 separate volcanoes here. Okay? Again, they don't want us to see what's happening, which is sad. South of Sisters Volcano, there's another one. It's called Newberry Craters. This is all in Oregon, guys. Everything from Mount Hood south is in Oregon. There's quite a few volcanoes here in Oregon we can't even talk about because they refuse to give us the information. Bachelor Mountain Volcano, we've had no information at all from that volcano for 2 years now. 2 years. They turned the seismograph basically off. They've turned it so far down, all you see is one thin horizontal line after another, one after another, throughout the whole seismograph. Okay, so you can't see anything on the seismograph at all. That's not how the seismographs work. If they are allowed to, they will show you activity, no matter when the activity is. If they turn them way down where you're only seeing one thin horizontal line after another for 24 hours, it's not being programmed right. Okay? They don't want us to see what's going on. For weeks now, we haven't seen anything going on at Newberry Volcano. This, folks, is one of the central volcanic cones of this volcano, Newberry Volcano. You can see these horizontal lines, can't you? Each horizontal line is 50 minutes long. You can see the magma coming into the magma chamber at this volcano. You can actually see tremors and earthquakes hitting here. But they have turned it so far down that the earthquakes and tremors are not being shown here. Then all of a sudden here, what happens this afternoon? They turn the seismograph back up, and all of a sudden we see the fury of the magma coming into the magma chamber. Those thick lines are magma coming into the magma chamber at this volcano. The vertical lines going through those lines are tremors and or earthquakes happening from magma fracturing rocks inside the volcano. You can clearly see what's happening here. Okay? That's at Newberry Volcano. The next volcano I'm taking you to is down on the south central side of Oregon. It's called Crater Lake. Crater Lake. Crater Lake, folks, is a huge volcano in south central Oregon. Crater Lake, folks, has 4 seismographs. 4 seismographs. 4 seismographs monitoring this volcano. This is what they have to show us today. Not one of those seismographs is turned on. It's not showing us any information at all. Seismographs shut off. All 4 of them. Crater Lake Fleetwood Cove, Crater Lake Mount Scott, Crater Lake Bunker Hill, and Crater Lake Wizard Island. All 4 seismographs shut off. Every one of them. There's no excuse for that. That's called improper behavior by the agency. And in this case, the agency, folks, is not the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. This is USGS doing the dirty work. Okay? Sad. It's sad that we can't find out anything about Crater Lake, the volcano. This volcano has a mountain. It's a stratovolcano. It's a good sized volcano, guys. It's not small. And at the top of that volcano, there's a rim around the entire volcano, around the summit of the volcano. A pretty high rim. And inside that rim is a lake, a deep lake. That's why they call it Crater Lake. After that volcano last erupted, a level of lava settled at the top there. Okay? It basically created a table, pretty flat table. When magma solidifies, all that lava is basically soft. You could run your hand across it. Okay? When it gets cold and solidifies, it becomes one huge lava rock. And that's what happened at Crater Lake. Then a water table came in. Water and rain accumulated in that great big huge ring in that crater at Crater Lake. A lot of water. Now it is a cold alpine lake. Yes, there's been seismic activity at Crater Lake. A lot of seismic activity at Crater Lake. But they're not going to show it to us, are they? Heaven forbid that we can get any honest answers out of these agencies all the time. They're certainly not showing us Crater Lake. They're not. They can't possibly be showing it to us when they don't show us anything at all. And that's what they're showing us. Nothing. There's two more volcanoes that I want to explore. And I can't. Because there's only one volcano that is showing any kind of seismogram that is any kind of reliable. Mount Shasta has those honors tonight. Okay? Look at this seismogram. This comes from the southeast side of the volcano. The southeast lower side of the volcano. Seismograph LTI. You can see it here too. Look at this seismogram. Look at it carefully. Up at the top of the seismogram, you can see that it starts out at 1500 hours yesterday afternoon. 1500 hours is 3 p.m. Look at all that magma coming into the magma chamber. Each of these lines are very thick. Now you see several places where there's a large amount of magma and it's created a long vertical line. I'm not talking about the red lines, however, I will include the red lines. The red lines are computer generated that allow the seismologist to know, hey, those red lines are something. It's a computer telling me I need to look at this. This seismograph has been approved, and the seismogram has also been approved. Yesterday afternoon through 7 p.m. last night. From 3 to 7, 4 hours. We see this tremendous amount of magma coming into this magma chamber, don't we? Look at the size of the earthquakes. That red line, folks, represents the size of those earthquakes. Can you say 3.0, 3.5 magnitude earthquakes? Small earthquakes. But they were felt. There are felt reports around this mountain because people live near it. They felt those earthquakes. Yes, there's smaller earthquakes and tremors here as well. But given the amount of magma here, we don't see all of the earthquakes. We don't see the sizes of all the earthquakes. But then, after 6 p.m., they turned off the seismograph. They turned off the seismograph. How dare they? Look at the time of day that they're not showing us. From 6 p.m. on. From 6 p.m. on, folks, they're not showing us any data. No data until this morning. at 9 p.m. At 9 a.m. this morning, California time. Over on the left-hand side it says 0900, doesn't it? 9 a.m. this morning, California time. Look at the blue line on the left. See that line going down? That line going down signifies that this seismograph had been turned off and they turned it on. We also see that horizontal line going off to the right. It's thick at times. It's thicker and then gets thinner and gets thicker again. Now, the next line here is 10 a.m. 10 a.m. This line represents 1 minute going across, all the way across. That horizontal line represents 60 minutes. So, at about 10:45 p.m., 10:45 a.m. this morning, there was a large earthquake caused by magma coming into this magma chamber. Now, if you look at these lines, they're fairly thin. If you look at this line here, it gets thicker right before the earthquake. Folks, this seismograph was turned way down. This seismograph was turned way down. This may have been a 4.5 magnitude earthquake. By itself, just seeing that red line by itself, it would show at least a 3.5, if not a larger earthquake. We know it was turned down because the lines show that. The horizontal lines don't show that much magma. There's a lot more magma. If the seismograph was allowed to show exactly what was going on at this volcano, those lines would be thicker. And yet they're not allowing the seismograph to do its job. This earthquake was felt. This earthquake was at least a 4.5 earthquake at Mount Shasta. And you can see these smaller quakes here below that. Up until just after 3:45 p.m. when that bottom line stopped. Okay? This shows you what this agency does. They don't want anyone to know exactly what's going on. They know. Oh, you bet they know. Even if they monitored this seismograph from a distance, they would know that there was an earthquake caused by magma at this volcano. They would know without a shadow of a doubt what was going on. But again, they're not going to show it to us, are they? Oh, heck no. We can't allow the public to see that. Yet they show us this time period where they don't even have the seismograph on. They're not allowing us to see what happened for all of those hours. 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. 11 hours without data. Why not? Why not? Now, folks, those are all the seismographs that I could pull today. That's all the seismographs I could pull. I'm going to try to pull more seismograms tomorrow. I want to show you what's going on at Mammoth. I want to show you what's going on at Long Valley. I want to show you what's going on in Southern California. Yes, there's earthquakes. There are earthquakes. Catherine Sigerson is in the chat from Canada, and she's saying there's another train derailment. Folks, one of the first things I awoke to yesterday morning was another train derailment. They are happening too often because the railroads are not taking care of the tracks. They're not maintaining the tracks, and they're also not maintaining the cars as well as they should be. Otherwise, we would not be having these train derailments. And yes, I have pictures of one of the derailments. One happened in Montana over the weekend. Many cars fell into Yellowstone River. One of the rail bridges collapsed from the train derailment. The cars fell into Yellowstone River. I have fished that river. There's a problem here, guys. Our infrastructure has been sabotaged. We can usually see about 1,000 train derailments a year. How many a month are actually happening? I've counted 20 train derailments around the country so far this month. And it's only the 24th, 25th. Actually, I'm sorry, it's the 26th today. 20 train derailments so far this month, and there will be more. Rob52 says oil tankers falling into the river there. Oil tankers, guys, oil and gas tankers falling into the river. What's wrong with that picture? A railroad infrastructure has been tampered with. Now we have water pollution. Water pollution. The water district in that area, folks, told people not to use any more water because of the oil tankers and gas tankers that fell into that river. People up and down the river are being told not to drink the water because the water districts get the water from the river. There's a problem. Catherine Sigerson says, very suspect. Absolutely. And Texas Lady says, very suspicious. Absolutely is. How many more times has this got to happen before someone says no more? Congressmen and senators and the public, all of us, need to say no more. No more. Canada has also had its share of train derailments. That's up in your neck of the woods, Catherine. Train derailments in Canada. Train derailments all over the United States. It's got to stop. Yes, it is a naturally occurring problem because we have so many miles of railroad. Tens of thousands of miles of railroad crisscrossing this country. It didn't normally happen before, but it's happening now. Because the railroad companies are taking the money that they should be using to retrofit the cars, to get maintenance of way people, that's what they call the crews, maintenance of way crews out there checking railways, checking the track. They're not doing the job. The company has money, but they're not doing the job. Just like Pacific Gas and Electric a few years ago had tons of problems with their equipment. and their lines were being blown down by the Santa Ana winds coursing through California, and their lines coming down from the power poles, causing fires. Pacific Gas and Electric could address it. They didn't. They caused fires, which caused destruction, and the company went bankrupt. They stayed in business, but they went bankrupt because they no longer had money to pay their bills, allegedly. Guess what? They had plenty of money to pay their owners of California Gas and Electric. They had plenty of money. They gave their owners bonuses totaling millions of dollars during a bankruptcy proceeding. Gave their owners money, millions of dollars in bonuses during a bankruptcy proceeding. And the courts allowed it. What is the problem with that? Okay? And Linda Covington here is asking the same question I've been asking for months now. Where is a stupid transportation secretary? Secretary Dingo. Yeah. One of Biden's lunatics that's not doing his job. Oh yeah, I could go on and on and on, but I'm not going to. Folks, it's already 9 o'clock. We've gone well past our 2-hour time limit, and I've got to start enforcing myself to make sure we don't go over that. Friends and neighbors, make sure you give us a thumbs up if you like what we're doing here. Please make sure you're subscribed to our program. We want to grow this program. We want to have you share this program with your friends and neighbors, your family and extended family, the people you work with, and even the people you associate with on social media. Tell them about this program. Tell them about what you're learning and what you found and how it is going to improve your life. Tell them that. Now, before I leave you tonight, I've been leaving you for the past 2 years at least, maybe 3. I've been leaving you with a spiritual thought. I've been going to the scriptures for this. Tonight I'm going over to Revelations chapter 1, verses 7 and 8. Actually, I'm going to go through verse 9 as well. Starting with Revelations chapter 1, verse 7. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, amen. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, saith the Lord, which is, which was, and which is to come, the Almighty. And then in verse 9, I, John, who also am your brother and companion in tribulation, in the kingdom and patience of Jesus Christ, was in the isle that is called Patmos for the word of God and for the testimony of Jesus Christ. And I could go on for almost a full chapter here. You can go and read the full chapter yourself. He's talking about Jesus Christ, who is, was, and always will be the Savior, the Almighty King. Okay? The Savior's coming. I talk every week, almost every day on this channel about our Savior Jesus Christ. I have a testimony that he lives. He hears and answers prayers. Can our Heavenly Father hear and answer prayers? He is the beginning and He is the end. May God bless us so that we can get to know our Savior, our elder brother, Jesus Christ. Let's read our scriptures, please. Let's read our scriptures. There's a scripture that says, reading the scriptures, for in them ye shall find eternal life, which gift is the greatest of all gifts of God. May we do that to help ourselves and our families. Read the scriptures together with your children. It's a great thing. When my children were little, that's what I did. And I only lost one of them. She's an adult now. She might come back. At least that's what I pray. May God bless you all, is my humble prayer. God be with you until we meet again. If something else happens tonight, we'll be back on the air to tell you about it as soon as the information presents itself. Have a great night and a better tomorrow. I love you all. See you soon. God bless. God be with you till we meet again.